So, we learned today from the Home Office they have managed to do a pro-Brexit deal with the EU. They're called the Frontex deal. Not quite sure how they came up with that name, which is going to help us in our fight to stop illegal migration into the UK, so the government tells us. But we're going to get under the skin of that now, because joining me now is former Border Force Chief Immigration Officer, Kevin Saunders. Kevin, thanks for joining us here in TalkTV. I believe you actually left the Border Force in 2016, which, interestingly enough, was the same year as the British public voted for us to leave the European Union. I'm guessing that this deal was required because we'd lost some of those cooperation agreements when we ultimately left the European Union in 2020. Is this going back to where we were? Is this going further, and will it work?
Good morning, Jake. Well, the United Kingdom was never a full member of Frontex, even before Brexit. We were only an associate member, so we didn't interact with them on the full level, if you like. We did deploy officers to Frontex, but only in a very advisory capacity. In fact, one of my very good friends was often going off to Frontex, particularly to the southern Mediterranean countries. So we weren't fully inside Frontex. Now, this new deal that we've just signed with them is taking things back to almost what they were before. But we never stopped dealing with Frontex. If you had an issue over forged documents or something, instead of ringing Frontex in Warsaw, you'd ring your mate Pavel, who was Polish officer working for Frontex in Warsaw. So there were always ways round the problem.
So, Kevin, if this isn't really adding anything interesting or different, obviously the Home Office issued a press release saying this is fantastic and it will solve all sorts of things. But it's not going to work then, is it? If we were doing this already, we just didn't have a badge that said Frontex on it, this isn't going to make any difference whatsoever then, from what you say?
Well, I think what we're doing now is we're formalising the relationship with the organisation, and we are now going to officially share intelligence and everything else. I mean, the Europeans, the Frontex organisation needs the UK. There's no doubt about that at all. You may recall that we actually deployed at least one of our cutters, it may have even been two, to the Mediterranean to help them out over the huge numbers of migrants coming across from North Africa. So we help them out immensely there. So they do need us as well. And our intelligence is very good. And they need to be able to get into our intelligence as well.
OK, well, Kevin, that's good to hear. But how big is Frontex?
Well, Frontex is the Europeans' external border police, basically.
Right, OK.
What would have been good for the UK is if we could have had some Frontex assets deployed to northern France. I mean, they have aircraft, they have boats. And if we could have negotiated with them to deploy some assets to northern France, that would have been really helpful for us. But of course, they have a huge problem over the southern Mediterranean, so that's why that's where they're putting a lot of their assets at the moment, and of course also on the Polish frontier as well, which is leaking like a sieve.
OK, well, there's not much we can do as Polish frontier, but funnily enough, I was talking to one of my colleagues in Parliament this week, and he said, in his view, the only way we can stop the boats is by deploying the Royal Navy in conjunction with Frontex, or not, as the case may be, into the Mediterranean and stopping those crossings from Africa. They believe, they said to me, it's quite a senior colleague, they said to me they believe that's the only way we can stem the tide of boats. Is there any validity in that colleague's viewpoint? Is that what the government should be doing next?
Well, that certainly is one way of doing it. The trouble is that the Europeans can't agree on what day of the week it is. So you would need a centralised command to operate in the Mediterranean. Now, that is something that the Royal Navy are very good at, command and control. So a single command and control situation in the Mediterranean would be very good. But you run up against the same age-old problem. You can identify the migrants coming across the Mediterranean, but it's the politicians who have got to make the deals to return the migrants from whence they came. And that, I'm afraid, Jake, is the big problem at the moment.
Kevin, thank you for joining us. And